Zixthar's antenna twitched with irritation as he stared at the assignment notice. The holographic display floated in front of his compound eyes, and no matter how many times he read it, the words remained the same. Xenanthropology study. Species classification human. Duration, 6 standard months. Location, New Horizon Colony. Around him, other students at the Galactic Academic Institute whispered and pointed. Zixthar could hear their thoughts without needing telepathy. Poor thing. Got assigned to study humans. His academic career is finished before it even started. Humans. The galaxy's most confusing species. Zixthar was an Aetherian, a species known throughout the galaxy for their logical minds and careful research. His people had mapped star systems, solved impossible equations, and written the most respected academic papers in known space. They did not waste time on chaotic, unpredictable subjects, but humans were exactly that. Chaotic, unpredictable, messy. I hear you got the human assignment, a voice said behind him. Zixthar turned to see Velcra, another Aetherian student. Her antenna drooped in sympathy. I'm so sorry. It's a prestigious assignment, Zixthar said, trying to sound positive. The Institute selected me specifically. Yes, but humans? Velcra's mandibles clicked in disapproval. They make no sense. They act on emotion instead of logic. They take risks for no good reason. Last year, a student tried to study their concept of love and had to take medical leave. The whole thing gave him a nervous breakdown. Zixthar had heard the stories. Humans who ran into burning buildings to save strangers. Humans who cried at sunsets. Humans who kept small furry animals as companions and called them family. None of it followed any logical pattern. I'll maintain proper academic distance, Zixthar said firmly. Observe, document, analyze. Nothing more. Velcra looked doubtful but said nothing. That evening, Zixthar sat in his small quarters and reviewed the preliminary data on humans. The species file was thick with contradictions. Physical assessment, weak. Humans had no natural armor, no venom, no claws. Their skin damaged easily. They could only survive in a narrow range of temperatures. By all measures, they should have died out long ago. Yet somehow, they hadn't. Psychological assessment. Unstable. Humans experienced strong emotions that often overruled their reasoning. They formed attachments to people, places, and things with no survival benefit. They took actions that put themselves in danger to help others. Even strangers thought it made no sense. The Galactic Council had granted humans limited membership in the greater community. But most species kept them at arm's length. Too unpredictable. Too emotional. Too strange. Zixthar's mentor, Professor Thane, called him to his office the next day. The elderly Aetherian looked tired as he gestured for Zixthar to sit. I wanted to speak with you before you left for New Horizon, Thane said. This assignment is important, but it's also dangerous. Dangerous? The humans are not a violent species to ward. Not physically dangerous, Thane interrupted. Psychologically dangerous. Humans have a way of affecting those who study them. They draw you in, make you care, make you forget your objectivity. Zixthar's antenna stiffened. I would never. I studied humans once, Thane said quietly. Many years ago. I spent 3 months on Earth, their homeworld. By the end, He paused. I had to leave. I was forgetting who I was. Starting to think like them. Feel like them. What should I do? Maintain distance. Always remember you're an observer, not a participant. Don't let them get close. Don't accept their friendship or their kindness. It's a trap, even if they don't mean it to be. Thane looked directly at Zixthar. Humans are infection, student. They infect you with their illogical ways. Be careful. Be careful. The warning stayed with Zixthar as he packed his research equipment. He boarded the transport ship 3 days later, his belongings minimal and his determination strong. He would study the humans, write his thesis, and return to the Institute with his academic reputation intact. The journey to New Horizon took 2 weeks. Zixthar spent the time reviewing every piece of human data he could find. Their history was violent, but also showed strange moments of cooperation. Their art made no logical sense, but was somehow beautiful. Their music affected emotional centers in ways that mathematics couldn't explain. The more he read, the less he understood. When the transport finally approached New Horizon, Zixthar pressed his face to the viewport. The colony world looked rough and new. Domes dotted the landscape where humans had built their settlements. Mining equipment scarred the surface. It was a frontier world, far from Earth, where humans came to dig valuable minerals from the ground. The transport landed at the main colony dome. As Zixthar gathered his equipment, he felt his antenna twitch with nervousness. This was it. 6 months studying the strangest species in the galaxy. The airlock opened, and Zixthar stepped into the colony. Immediately, he was struck by the noise. Humans were loud. They called to each other across the corridors. Somewhere, music played. Laughter echoed off the metal walls. A human female approached him. She had dark skin and short black hair, and she smiled widely. "You must be Zixthar. Welcome to New Horizon. I'm Captain Sarah Chun, Colony Administrator." She extended her hand. Zixthar knew this was a human greeting gesture. He touched her hand briefly with his manipulator limb, then pulled back. "Thank you, Captain. I'm here to conduct academic research. We know. We're excited to have you. It's not often we get visited by Aetherian scholars." Her enthusiasm seemed genuine, which puzzled Zixthar. Why would humans be happy about being studied? "I'll try not to interfere with your daily activities," Zixthar said stiffly. Captain Chun laughed. "Interfere? You're welcome to participate. We'll set you up with quarters and workspace, but please, join us for meals, ask questions, make yourself at home." Make himself at home. As if this rough mining colony could ever be home to an Aetherian. But Zixthar simply nodded politely. He would observe. He would document. And in 6 months, he would leave, his research complete and his distance maintained. He had no idea how wrong he was. The first week on New Horizon confused Zixthar more than all his preliminary research combined. Humans were nothing like their data files suggested. Every morning, Captain Chun invited him to breakfast in the common hall. Zixthar tried to refuse, preferring to observe from a distance, but Chun was persistent. "Come on, best way to understand us is to eat with us," she said cheerfully. The common hall was chaos. Humans sat in groups, talking loudly, laughing, sometimes arguing. They shared food from each other's plates. They told stories that seemed to have no point except entertainment. Children ran between tables, while adults called gentle warnings. Zixthar sat in the corner, taking notes on his datapad. Illogical use of resources. Inefficient social structure. Excessive emotional displays. But something nagged at him. Despite the chaos, the humans seemed happy. Dr. Marcus Webb, the colony's xenobiologist, often joined Zixthar for these observations. Webb was a thin human male with gray hair and excited eyes. "What are you writing?" Webb asked one morning. "Behavioral notes. You seem to waste significant time on social bonding activities." Webb laughed. "Waste? These activities keep us sane. Humans aren't meant to be alone, Zixthar. We need each other. Aetherian work groups are more efficient. We focus on tasks, not feelings. And are you happy?" The question stopped Zixthar. Happiness wasn't relevant to efficiency. He said, "So." Webb just smiled. Maybe that's the difference between us. The miners were particularly confusing. They worked in dangerous conditions, digging deep into New Horizons' crust for valuable minerals. Logic suggested they should take the safest, slowest approach. Instead, they took risks. They trusted their instincts. They made quick decisions based on gut feelings rather than careful calculation. One miner, who everyone called Old Jack, seemed to embody this contradiction. He was weathered and scarred, with white hair and sharp blue eyes. He told stories that Zixthar was certain were exaggerations. "I once saw a human ship hold together with duct tape and prayers," Jack said one evening. "Engineers swore the math said it couldn't fly. Flew it anyway. Made it home." Zixthar's antenna twitched in disbelief. "That's impossible. The structural integrity would—" "I was on that ship, bug friend. Sometimes what's impossible don't matter to humans. We do it anyway." Zixthar marked the story as folklore in his notes. Clearly an exaggeration meant to impress. 3 weeks into his research, Zixthar was beginning to form his thesis. Humans survived despite their illogical nature, not because of it. They were lucky. Nothing more done. Then everything changed. The alarm started at 0300 hours. Zixthar jerked awake in his quarters as red lights flashed and a harsh siren wailed. His communicator crackled to life. Captain Chen's voice, tense but controlled. "All personnel, this is not a drill. We've received a distress call from Research Station Theta 9. Unknown hostile forces attacking. All available ships prepare for emergency response." Zixthar's heart raced. He wasn't a responder. He was a researcher. But curiosity drove him to the command center. The room was organized chaos. Humans moved quickly, calling out information, coordinating responses. Captain Chun stood at the center, watching multiple screens. "Status?" She barked. "Station Theta 9 under heavy attack," someone reported. "Unknown species. They're calling themselves the Varex Swarm. Theta 9's shields are failing. How long until the galactic fleet arrives?" 48 hours minimum. Chen's jaw tightened. "The station won't last that long. Prep all rescue shuttles. We're going in." "Captain, we're a mining colony. We're not equipped for military. We're all they've got. Move." Zixthar watched in amazement. This was illogical. New Horizon had limited resources and no military training. Going to help meant putting themselves at risk. The logical choice was to wait for proper authorities. But humans, Zixthar was learning, rarely made the logical choice. Dr. Webb appeared at his side. "You should get to your ship, Zixthar. Get clear of the system." "Aye." Zixthar hesitated. His research vessel was docked at the colony. He could leave. Should leave. "I'll prepare for departure." He made his way to the docking bay, but something made him stop. Through the bay windows, he could see human ships launching. Small mining vessels, transport shuttles, even personal craft. Volunteers, all heading toward danger. His communicator beeped. Automated message. Galactic Academic Institute advises all research personnel to evacuate the sector immediately. Logical. Safe. Correct. Zixthar's manipulators moved to his ship's controls, preparing launch sequences. But he found himself hesitating, watching the human ships fly toward the battle. Then his ship's sensors screamed a warning. Multiple hostile contacts entering system. Someone yelled over the open channel. Zixthar's screens lit up with red markers. Ships. Dozens of them. Insectoid in design, but nothing like any species he knew. They moved in swarm patterns, aggressive and fast. The Vorax. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Captain Chun's voice was sharp. "They're targeting everyone." Zixthar's ship lurched as something struck it. Alarms shrieked. His display showed critical damage to the navigation system and hull breaches in sectors 3 and 7. Mayday? Mayday. This is Research Vessel Enlightenment, Zixthar transmitted, trying to keep his voice steady. I've lost navigation and life support is failing. More hits. His ship spun out of control. Through the chaos, Zixthar heard transmissions. Human ships fighting back with mining lasers and improvised weapons, coordinating, protecting each other. Enlightenment, this is Chun. We see you. Hang on. No, Captain, save yourself. I'm just another impact. Zixthar's ship tumbled toward New Horizons' nearest moon. He tried to stabilize, but the controls were dead. The moon rushed up to meet him, a barren rock with a toxic atmosphere. He was going to crash. The last thing Zixthar remembered before impact was a human voice on the radio. Captain Chun shouting orders. Get rescue teams ready. I don't care what the protocols say. We don't leave people behind. Then his ship hit the surface, and everything went dark. When Zixthar regained consciousness, his head throbbed and his breathing hurt. Emergency lights flickered in the ruined cockpit. His ship was buried in gray sand, tilted at a sharp angle. He checked his suit's display. Atmospheric toxicity, extreme. Hull breaches, multiple. Life support, 72 hours remaining. 3 days of air. Zixthar activated his emergency beacon and tried to assess his injuries. One leg was broken. His carapace had cracks. Every movement brought pain. He was alone on a hostile moon, injured, with no way to communicate beyond the beacon's simple signal. The logical part of his brain calculated survival odds, less than 5%. But then he remembered Captain Chun's words. We don't leave people behind. Would they really come? For him? An alien researcher they barely knew? Logic said no. But humans, he was learning, didn't always follow logic. Zixthar settled into wait, watching his air supply slowly tick down, and wondered if he would live long enough to finish his research on the strangest species in the galaxy. 68 hours of air remaining. Zixthar had stopped trying to move. Every shift sent pain through his broken leg and cracked carapace. He sat in the ruined cockpit, watching the toxic atmosphere swirl outside through the cracked viewport. He should be dead already. The crash should have killed him. But ether and physiology was resilient, and his ship's emergency systems had held just long enough. Now, he waited. For rescue. For death. He wasn't sure which would come first. To stay conscious, he reviewed his research notes on his datapad. Reading about human behavior seemed darkly ironic now. All those observations about their illogical actions, their emotional decisions, their tendency to help others at personal cost. He had written those notes with academic detachment, never thinking he would be the one needing help. 56 hours of air. Zixthar's broken leg had swollen. His medical training was limited, but he knew the signs of internal damage. Even if rescued, he might not survive the journey back. The datapad's battery was dying, but he couldn't stop reading. Human section. Rescue operations. He had documented several instances where humans mounted dangerous rescue missions for people they barely knew. He had noted it as inefficient allocation of resources. Now those words seemed cruel. His communicator crackled with static. He had been picking up faint transmissions for hours. Couldn't understand most of them through the interference, but he recognized human voices. They were out there, searching. For him. 42 hours of air. Hallucinations started. Zixthar saw his mentor, Professor Thane, standing in the corner of the cockpit. I told you humans were dangerous, the hallucination said. Look where studying them has gotten you. You told me not to let them get close, Zixthar whispered. But I kept my distance. I observed. I stayed professional. And you're still going to die because of them. Zixthar wanted to argue, but his thoughts were getting fuzzy. The toxic atmosphere was seeping through the hull breaches. His air was contaminated. 20-8 hours of air. No, 28 hours of breathable air. He'd be unconscious long before then. The communicator crackled again. This time, he heard words. Hostile contacts, hold position, not leaving without. Zixthar tried to respond, but his voice was too weak. The transmitter was damaged anyway. He closed his eyes. Perhaps dying alone on this moon was fitting. He had spent his whole life keeping distance from others. Even on New Horizon, he had remained separate, observing but never truly participating. Now he would die the same way, alone. Enlightenment, if you can hear this, we're coming. Hold on. Captain Chun's voice, faint but clear enough to understand. Zixthar's eyes opened. They were still coming. Even now, even with Vorax ships hunting them, even with every logical reason to abort, humans were coming for him. 18 hours of air. Zixthar heard sounds outside. Weapons fire. Explosions. The moon's surface shook. Then voices. Close. Very close. Ships buried in the sand. Start digging. Contacts incoming. 2 Vorax scouts. Keep digging. Webb, set up a perimeter. Through his cracked viewport, Zixthar saw figures in environment suits. Humans. They were here. Actually here. Mining equipment hummed as they cleared sand from his ship. Weapons fired as they defended against attacking Vorax. Hull breach on the port side. There's our entry point. Sir, we've got maybe 3 minutes before more Vorax arrive. Then work faster. Metal screeched as they cut through his ship's damaged hull. Zixthar tried to call out, but his voice was barely a whisper. Light flooded in as they tore open an access panel. A human face appeared, covered by an environment helmet. Old Jack. There you are, bug friend. Looks like you got yourself in a spot of trouble. You came. Zixthar managed. Course we came. What kind of people would we be if we didn't? Jack moved into the cockpit with surprising agility for his age. Chun. He's alive but in bad shape. We need to move now. More humans entered. Captain Chun knelt beside him, her face serious behind her helmet. Zixthar, we're getting you out. This is going to hurt. The Vorax are about to get a face full of human stubbornness. Hold still. They lifted him. Zixthar screamed as his broken leg shifted, but human hands held him steady. They moved quickly, carrying him through the torn hull and out onto the moon's surface. The scene outside was chaos. A human shuttle sat nearby, its hull scarred from weapon impacts. Dr. Webb and 2 miners fired at shapes in the toxic fog Vorax scouts. Insectoid creatures larger than Zixthar, with razor-sharp limbs and no concept of mercy. Fall back to the shuttle. Chun ordered. Covering fire! They ran. Humans carrying their injured researcher, while others fought off attackers. It made no tactical sense. They should leave him, save themselves, retreat with their casualties at a minimum. But humans didn't think that way. A Vorax scout broke through the line, charging directly at the group carrying Zixthar. Dr. Webb stepped into its path, firing his weapon continuously. The Vorax's claw swept out, catching Webb across the chest. He went down. Webb! Chun screamed. 2 miners grabbed Webb while others provided covering fire. Everyone was moving, fighting, refusing to leave anyone behind. They reached the shuttle. Hands pushed Zixthar through the hatch. He landed on the deck, gasping. Around him, humans scrambled aboard, dragging their wounded. Everyone in! Pilot, get us out of here. The shuttle lifted off as Vorax scouts swarmed their position. Weapons fire struck the hull, but the human pilot flew through the toxic atmosphere with wild, improvised maneuvers that no Ethereum pilot would attempt. it worked. They broke free of the moon's gravity and accelerated toward New Horizon. Behind them, Vorax ships gave chase, but human defensive positions opened fire, forcing them back. In the shuttle's medical bay, humans worked on Zixthar and their own wounded. Dr. Webb lay nearby, his chest armor cracked, breathing shallow. Captain Chun knelt beside Zixthar. "You're going to be okay. Our doctor is good. Dr. Webb. He saved me. He was injured because that's what we do," Chun said simply. "We protect each other. But I'm not one of you." Chun smiled. "You think that matters to us? You were in danger. We could help. That's all we needed to know." Zixthar's vision was blurring. Shock, pain, and contamination were taking their toll. But through the haze, he saw humans caring for each other and for him with the same intensity. No distinction. No hierarchy of who deserved saving more. They had risked their lives for him. A stranger. An alien researcher who had spent weeks taking notes on their inefficient behavior. Old Jack appeared, somehow uninjured, despite being at the front of the fighting. "You still think we're just lucky, bug friend?" Zixthar thought about everything he had witnessed. The immediate decision to rescue him. The coordination under fire. The refusal to leave anyone behind, even at great personal risk. "No," he whispered. "I was wrong about you. I was wrong about all of it. Well, you got 6 months to figure us out properly. Once you heal up." Jack patted his shoulder carefully. "Welcome to New Horizons, Zixthar. Real welcome this time." As medical sedatives pulled him toward unconsciousness, Zixthar's last thought was clear and sharp. He had come to study humans. Now he owed them his life. Everything was about to change. Zixthar woke to the sound of alarms. His leg was in a medical brace, his carapace sealed with synthetic resin. He lay in the colony's medical center, and through the window he could see the reason for the alarms. Vorax ships. Dozens of them, descending on New Horizon like a swarm of angry insects. Dr. Webb sat in the bed next to him, chest wrapped in bandages, but eyes alert. "They followed us," he said quietly. "The Vorax. They want to finish what they started." Captain Chun burst into the medical bay. "We're evacuating non-essential personnel. There's a diplomatic shuttle leaving in 20 minutes, Zixthar. You're on it. What about you?" "We're staying. This is our home." Chun's face was hard. "The Galactic Fleet won't arrive for 6 days. We have to hold until then. 6 days. Against a Vorax swarm. With mining equipment and improvised weapons. It was suicide." "How many ships do they have?" Zixthar asked. 53 at last count. More arriving every hour. Chun handed him a datapad. "Your evacuation clearance. You need to go now." Zixthar looked at the pad, then at Dr. Webb, who had taken a Vorax claw to the chest, saving him. Then at Chun, who had organized a rescue mission that violated every safety protocol. He thought about his mentor's warning. "Don't let humans get close. They'll infect you with their illogical ways. Too late." "No," Zixthar said. "What?" "I'm staying." He set the pad aside. "You saved my life. I will not abandon you. Zixthar, you're a researcher, not a soldier. This isn't your fight. You made it my fight when you risked your lives for me." His antenna stood firm. "I stay." Chun stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, and it was genuine and warm. "All right. Welcome to the Defense Force. Webb, get him fitted for armor once the doctor clears him." The next 3 days were brutal. The Vorax attacked in waves. Their ships hammered New Horizons' defensive shields, while ground forces tried to breach the colony domes. Humans fought back with everything they had. Zixthar discovered that his Etherean, analytical mind was valuable in ways he had never imagined. He studied Vorax attack patterns, predicted their movements, calculated optimal defensive positions. They attack in prime number sequences, he told Chun on the second day. 7 ships, then 11, then 13. They're testing our defenses systematically. So what do? Change our pattern. Make it random. Humans are good at random, yes? Chun laughed despite the exhaustion on her face. Yeah, we're great at random. Let's do it. They implemented chaos into their defense, and the Vorax faltered. Human unpredictability became a weapon. Zixthar worked alongside Old Jack in the command center. The old miner's stories, which Zixthar had dismissed as exaggerations, turned out to be tactical experience from decades of frontier life. Vorax are insects, Jack explained, pointing at sensor readings. They think like a hive. Take out the coordinators, the swarm gets confused. How do you know this? Fought them once, 20 years back. Different sector. Same tactics. Jack's eyes were hard. Lost good people that day. Not losing anyone here if I can help it. Together, they identified the coordinator ships and directed fire toward them. It worked. When coordinators fell, the swarm hesitated, giving humans precious seconds to regroup. But the casualties mounted. The colony's doctor worked around the clock. Food rations were cut. Power was diverted from non-essential systems. Everyone was exhausted. On the third night, Zixthar sat in the common hall with other defenders during a brief lull in attacks. The room was quiet. People ate in silence, too tired for conversation. Old Jack sat down next to him, dropping a tray with a heavy sigh. You didn't have to stay, Jack said. I know. So why did you? Zixthar considered the question. My people, we value logic, efficiency, survival. But you humans showed me something my research never could. What's that? That some things are worth dying for. Jack was quiet for a moment. Then he started laughing. It wasn't mocking, but warm and genuine. What's funny? Zixthar asked. You just defined humanity better than any academic paper could. Welcome to the family, bug friend. Family. The word meant something different to humans than the Etherian equivalent. Not just genetic connection, but chosen bonds. People who stood together not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Zixthar realized he had a family now. These humans who had saved him, fought beside him, shared their food and their fears with him. Dr. Webb returned to duty on the 4th day, against medical advice. His chest was still healing, but he refused to stay in bed while others fought. You're being illogical, Zixthar told him. Probably, Webb agreed, checking his weapon. But my friends need me. Logic doesn't enter into it. That Vorax claw could have killed you, but it didn't. You know why? Webb smiled. Because I knew if I went down, Chun and Jack would get you out anyway. I trusted them to finish what I started. That's what family does. The word again. Family. Captain Chen gathered everyone for a briefing on the 5th day. Her face was drawn with exhaustion, but her voice was steady. The galactic fleet arrives tomorrow. We just need to hold for one more day. She paused. I know you're all tired. I know we've lost people. But we're still here. Still fighting. And I've never been more proud to serve with all of you. People nodded. No cheers. They were too tired for that. But there was determination in every face. Zixthar stood. Captain, I've been analyzing the Vorax fleet composition. They're preparing for a final assault. When? Tonight. They'll throw everything at us. They want to break through before the fleet arrives. The room fell silent. Then we'll be ready, Chun said. Everyone to defensive positions. This is it. Hold the line for one more night, and we win. As people filed out to their stations, Old Jack stopped beside Zixthar. Scared? The old man asked. Terrified, Zixthar admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. But you know what beats fear? What? Knowing the person next to you won't let you fall. That's the human secret, bug friend. We're weak alone. Together? Jack grinned. Together, we're unstoppable. The alarm sounded again. The final assault had begun. Zixthar took his position in the command center, analyzing data and calling out coordinates. Around him, humans fought with everything they had. They were outgunned, outnumbered, exhausted, but they didn't break. Through the night, the battle raged. Vorax ships hammered the shields. Ground forces breached the outer defenses. Humans fell back, fighting for every meter. Never giving up, Zixthar's analytical mind processed the data with cold clarity. They were losing. The shields would fail within the hour. The Vorax would breach the main dome. They weren't going to make it, but looking around the command center at exhausted, humans who refused to quit, who fought for each other with their last strength. Zixthar realized something profound. Winning wasn't the point. Standing together was. All positions. This is Chun. The captain's voice came over the comm. Vorax are breaching Sector 7. Fall back to final defensive position. Protect the civilians at all costs. Final position meant the last stand. The place where they would make their end. Zixthar stood. His leg hurt, but the brace held. He picked up a weapon. He had learned to use human firearms in the past days. Where are you going? A technician asked. To stand with my family, Zixthar said. He limped towards Sector 7, where humans were gathering for their final defense. Where his friends were fighting, where he belonged. The final defensive position was a large hangar near the colony's central dome. Humans had fortified it with mining equipment, cargo containers, anything that could stop Vorax claws and weapons fire. Children and elderly colonists huddled in the protected center. Around them, every able-bodied person formed a defensive line. Miners stood next to scientists. Engineers worked alongside teachers. Everyone who could hold a weapon did so. Zixthar took position next to Dr. Webb. The human's chest wound was bleeding through his bandages, but he stood firm. You should be in the medical bay, Zixthar said. So should you, Webb replied with a weak smile. But here we are. Captain Chen walked the line, checking positions, offering words of encouragement. When she reached Zixthar, she paused. Thank you for staying, she said quietly. Thank you for teaching me what it means to stand together. Chen nodded, then moved on. There was no time for long goodbyes. The Vorax came like a wave. They poured through the breached walls, their chitinous bodies reflecting emergency lights. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The sensors couldn't count anymore. Hold the line, Chun shouted. Humans opened fire. The noise was deafening. Vorax fell, but more took their places. They kept coming, relentless as a flood. Zixthar fired his weapon, his analytical mind calculating trajectories and weak points. He had studied Vorax anatomy during the siege. He knew where to aim. A Vorax broke through the line, heading for the civilians. Old Jack stepped into its path. Not today, Bug Ugly. Jack's weapon clicked empty. The Vorax raised its claw. Without thinking, Zixthar threw himself forward, knocking Jack aside. The claw caught Zixthar instead, tearing through his armor and into his side. Pain exploded through him, but he fired point-blank into the Vorax's head. It fell. Zixthar. Webb was at his side. You're hit. So are you, Zixthar gasped. We're even now. Jack laughed despite everything. Crazy bug. You're more human than some humans I know. The line was collapsing. Too many Vorax, not enough defenders. People fell back toward the civilians, forming tighter circles. This was the end. Zixthar's communicator was still active, connected to emergency channels. On impulse, He switched to the Galactic Academic Network's emergency frequency. It broadcast across light years, monitored by every major institution. His manipulators were clumsy with pain, but he managed to activate recording mode. "This is researcher Zixthar of the Galactic Academic Institute," he said, his voice strained. "I am broadcasting from New Horizon Colony. We are under attack by Vorax forces. The Galactic Fleet will not arrive in time." Weapons fire echoed around him. Someone screamed. "I came here to study humans," he continued. "I was told they were illogical, inefficient, too emotional. I was warned to keep my distance." A Vorax charged. Zixthar shot it down and kept talking. "But humans saved my life when they should have saved themselves. They fought for me when I was nothing to them. They taught me that efficiency means nothing without compassion. That logic fails when it forgets the value of a single life." He looked around at the humans fighting, bleeding, dying to protect each other. "The Galactic Council asks what humans can contribute to our civilization. I will tell you. They contribute hope. They contribute the stubborn refusal to abandon those in need. They contribute the crazy belief that impossible odds are just another challenge to overcome." Captain Chung glanced at him, tears in her eyes, but she kept firing. "I was sent to study them," Zixthar said. "I learned they are worth dying for. I learned that I would rather die here with these humans than live without knowing what they taught me." He sent the message to every major institution in the galaxy: the Galactic Council, the Academic Institute, the military commands, everyone. "If we fall tonight," he finished, "remember that we fell together. Human and Aetherian, family." He closed the transmission and raised his weapon again. "Nice speech, bug friend," old Jack said. "But we're not dead yet." The old man was right. Despite everything, the humans were still fighting, still holding Dot, and then something changed. The Vorax suddenly pulled back, their swarm formation breaking. Confused, Zixthar checked his sensors. New contacts. Dropping out of hyperspace. Not Vorax. "Captain!" Someone shouted. "Ships incoming." Multiple signatures. The communication channel crackled to life. "New Horizon. This is Galactic Fleet Command. We received an emergency broadcast. Hold your position. Reinforcements arriving now." But it wasn't just the scheduled fleet. Zixthar sensors showed dozens of ships. Different species. Different flags dot his message. His testimony. It had reached them, and they had come. Aetherian research vessels. Centauri merchant ships. Even a Draken military cruiser. Ships from across the galaxy, responding to a desperate call for help. The Vorax fleet was caught between the colony's defense and the arriving reinforcements. The battle turned quickly. Within minutes, Vorax ships were fleeing or destroyed. It was over. Zixthar collapsed, his wound bleeding badly. Dr. Webb was already unconscious nearby. Old Jack knelt beside them both, laughing and crying at the same time. "We made it," the old man said. "Crazy bug, we actually made it." Medical teams rushed in. Humans and now other species too, working together to treat the wounded. Zixthar felt himself lifted onto a stretcher. Heard urgent voices discussing his injuries. Captain Chun appeared above him, her face smudged with smoke and tears. "You called the entire galaxy," she said. "I told them the truth," Zixthar whispered. "About you. About us. Rest now. You've earned it." The next weeks were a blur of surgery and recovery. Zixthar woke occasionally to find Dr. Webb in the next bed, both of them being put back together piece by piece. Old Jack visited every day, telling his wild stories until the medical staff chased him out. Captain Chen brought news from the galaxy. Zixthar's broadcast had been heard everywhere. His testimony about human courage and compassion had moved the Galactic Council to tears. Several species were reconsidering their stance on humanity. "You made us famous," Chun said with a smile. "I made you understood," Zixthar corrected. 3 months later, Zixthar stood at New Horizons Memorial Wall. Names were carved into the stone. 17 humans who had died defending their home. Among them, old Jack, who had succumbed to his injuries 2 weeks after the battle. Dr. Webb stood beside him, leaning on a cane, his chest still healing. "Jack would have liked knowing you stayed," Webb said quietly. "He called me family," Zixthar said. "I did not understand what that meant at first. And now? Now I understand that family is not about biology. It's about who you stand with when everything falls apart." Webb smiled. "You sound more human every day." Zixthar's thesis was published 6 months after the battle. Humanity, the strength in defying logic, became mandatory reading at the Galactic Academic Institute. It argued that human inefficiency was actually adaptability. Their irrationality was creativity and compassion. Their tendency to help others was not a weakness, but their greatest strength. The Galactic Council offered Zixthar a prestigious position as head of xenanthropology research. The salary was enormous. The prestige was everything an Aetherian academic could want. He declined. Captain Chun found him in the common hall, eating breakfast with the other colonists. "You turned down the council position?" she asked. "I did. Why?" Zixthar looked around at the humans who had become his family. The colony they had defended together. The life they were building. "They told me to study humans," he said. "I came to understand them. Now I choose to stand with them. This is my home now." Chun's eyes were bright. "Welcome home, Zixthar, truly." 5 years later, Zixthar stood before a new class of xenanthropology students at the Institute. He had returned, not as a researcher, but as a teacher. He divided his time between the Institute and New Horizon, training the next generation of researchers. The young students looked at him with awe and nervousness. An Aetherian who lived with humans, who called them family. "You have all been assigned to study different species," Zixthar told them. "Some of you will study the logical centauri. Others will research the artistic melodians. Several of you have been assigned to study humans." The students assigned to humans looked worried. Zixthar smiled. "Those of you studying humans, I have one piece of advice. Don't just observe them. Live alongside them. Eat with them. Fight beside them. Let them show you what they are, not what the data says they should be." He touched the scar on his side, remembering. "You might find they save your life in more ways than one. And when they do, you'll understand what I learned on New Horizon." A student raised a manipulator. "What's that, Professor?" Zixthar looked at the memorial photo on his desk. Captain Chen, Dr. Webb, Old Jack, and himself, taken 1 week before the battle. All of them smiling. All of them together. That the best research comes from the heart, not the head. And that sometimes, the strangest species in the galaxy can teach you what it truly means to be alive. The students were silent, absorbing his words. "Now," Zixthar said, "let me tell you about the time humans saved my life with nothing but mining equipment, bad jokes, and the stubborn refusal to leave anyone behind." And he began to teach them about humanity, not as an academic subject, but as a lived truth, because that was what Old Jack would have wanted. That was what family meant.